She then went on to perform in a variety of plays, TV shows, and movies, but it wasn't until 1991 that she played a character so unique it made her a movie star.
What was your name again?
Sandy.
Sorry.
The film was L.A. Story, and the character was Steve Martin's spastic young girlfriend. Suddenly, the word bimbo took on a whole new meaning.
No.
So go away with me.
I can't. Don't you see? I would just be using you to get even with her for going away with him.
I don't mind.
Let's go.
Great. Woo!
These days, her film career is still flying high. Starting Friday, she teams up with Bette Midler and Najimy to form a trio of wacky witches in the movie Hocus Pocus.
Brave little virgin who lit the candle, I'll be thy friend.
Hey, take a hike.
And Sarah Jessica Parcer, good morning. Welcome back to Today. Nice to see you.
Very nice.
Now, your friends call you Sarah, but your family call you Sarah Jessica?
Well, there's a peculiar sort of crossing. Those who've known me the longest tend to call me Sarah. Those who know me more recently call me Sarah Jessica. And then there's a peculiar group in the middle that, you know, call me, hey, you, what's your name, whatever.
All right, well, I'm going to call you Sarah Jessica since we just met this morning.
All right.
Tell me a little bit about this movie. How much fun was it to play a witch with Bette Midler and Najimy?
It was great fun. I mean, there were obviously, the elements were there, so it was sort of up to us to, you know. The thing that was most fun and most sort of creatively satisfying was that there was very little about our characters beyond descriptions of what they do in the context of the script. So we really got to, and me especially for the first time, I had a chance to really create a character, which meant like a voice and finding physical stuff and you know, learning to fly, and we all had our own separate and individual ways of flying, and our takeoffs were very different and unique, and it was great. And
what kind of witch did you want to create? What kind of witch is Sarah Sanderson?
Well, my theory is that she is the most fundamentally evil of all of them, because she is so not bright, so not calculating, that it is her innate nature to be evil. And my older sisters, it's a learned thing. It's like, you know, learning to like liver. You know, they have like learned this evil, and I have just picked it up. It's, you know, as part of my environment. And so I wanted her to be truly evil in the most uncalculating way, and still somehow be seductive. So whether or not that came to fruition is, you know, not for me to say, but that was sort of my intention.
You worked hard on coming up with the right voice, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Tell me some of the voices you played with and why you finally settled on what you settled on.
The voice actor. Well, I think ultimately it was sort of trial by error, and I would sort of cautiously test things out. My first idea was to do, I don't know if you recall Dana Carvey doing George Michael on Weekend Update on the news on Saturday Night Live, but he used to do this terrific impression of George Michael. And I thought I would do that as about a 4-year-old English schoolboy. That I thought it was hysterical. Like, I would be in my hotel room practicing this voice, and I thought it was brilliantly funny. And then I finally had the courage to try it on the set, and there was just not a peep. Nobody thought it was funny at all. It just didn't fly. Then they wanted me to sort of do a Marilyn voice, and I thought, well, that's been done, and that's sort of boring. And so then I somehow sort of found this peculiar, this voice in between.
And how does that voice sound?
Well, it sounds stupid.
Can you do a little bit of it?
Well, I guess it was sort of here, like this, you know. It's a bit of a helium. It was like a small 4-year-old boy on helium. That was what I wanted. I tried to be consistent. What you sounded like. But she's practically, you know, Mooch. I mean, when you speak, it's like a moot point. She barely speaks in the whole movie. So,
in fact, you were disappointed. You think a lot of your scenes were cut out. Yes?
Yeah, I wasn't disappointed. I think that, you know, you work on something. We were about 6 months shooting this movie, so, you know, you expect to see your face like endlessly on the screen, and naturally that doesn't happen anyway. I mean, there's always editing, but they made a choice in editing which, you know, philosophically and from a business point of view, I totally understand and in fact support. But it's at first shocking when you see a movie and you're not in it as much. But I'm really very pleased with the movie, and it's really nice because it's the first time I can really say I endorse and encourage parents to like take their children to see this movie, that there's no, like, it's morally and I think politically and just for a good time acceptable on every level. So I'm very pleased with it.
How was working with Bette? I know you all knew each other, or you knew of her because you had the same
knew exactly
voice
who she was.
teacher,
Yeah.
right? Well, I mean, obviously you knew who she was from her career, but you had the same voice coach, yes?
Yeah, we did. And when I was doing Annie on Broadway, she was doing the Divine Miss M on Broadway, and we had the same singing teacher. I said that because I knew exactly who she was, and I think I could have been like hired help in her eyes. I mean, who knew I was at this time? And I used to get to my singing lessons early so that I could listen to her. And she used to do these Italian vocal warm-ups. She used to do all these incredibly sort of eclectic variations of music.
And you'd be hiding?
I'd be in the kitchen listening, and then she would leave, and I would mimic everything she had done. And I'm not certain if I actually ever told her that, because I had so many, like, I adore you stories.
But she was very generous, and
she was just completely lovely. I mean, you know, you've said...
I talked with her last weekend. She's great.
And she's, I mean, she's talented, and we sort of know about all those attributes that are more public, but as a person and as a woman in particular, she's just incredibly inspiring. I mean, it's sort of pat, but she truly is this fabulous woman.
Well, that's what a great way to end this interview.
Oh, okay.
Sarah Jessica Parcer, it's really nice to meet you. The movie is Hocus Pocus.
Yes, it is. Friday across the country.
And continued success to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thanks.
Tomorrow we'll talk more about Hocus Pocus with actress Kathy Najimy. Then on Friday, the divine one herself, Bette Midler. It's 7:45, and in a moment we'll head down to...
Good.
A year and a half ago, a lot of people had never heard of actress Kathy Najimy. But then a movie called Sister Act came along. It made a cool $140 million at the box office and put Kathy Najimy's name right on the Hollywood map.
Even as a child, my mother used to say, that girl is pure sunshine. She'll either grow up to be a nun or a stewardess. Coffee?
Now she's starring alongside Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parcer in the new film Hocus Pocus. She plays a 17th century witch who transposes to present-day life and, among other things, finds new use for a common household appliance.
Winnie?
This morning, Kathy Najimy is in our Burbank studio. Hi, Kathy. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Listen, does it take any special skill to ride a Hoover? I don't know if you should answer that.
The funny thing is, that's the first time I've touched a vacuum in years.
I understand you had some concerns, in all seriousness, about taking on this role because you didn't want to offend or stereotype real witches. Is that right?
I didn't. I mean, you know, at the risk of having America roll their eyes, I just feel supportive of all groups, you know, whether they're women's groups or gay groups or racial groups. And I know that there are groups of witches out there. I mean, I'm not a witch. I don't know any personally. But when I read the script, I thought, this is really perpetuating a stereotype about an evil, ugly witch. And I know that there are groups of really strong women who sort of bond together with and are very spiritual and powerful. And I didn't want to be part of, you know, perpetuating that myth. So I talked to a lot of people about it. I talked to Kenny Ortega, the director, and he was great. I wrote letters to the producers, just letting them know how I felt. And I talked to Gloria Steinem about it.
You did?
And, yeah. And she said, you know, because she's the goddess of the world and knows everything. And she said that the interesting thing was that originally some of the women who were said to be witches were healthcare workers and midwives. So that's where the notion of baby eating came, because they would perform abortions sometimes. And so the women would go in pregnant and come out not. And so, you know, thus the gossip about baby eating, which is, of course, untrue. These were just like healthcare workers.
Right. We should point out that the Sanderson sisters ate babies in the movie, right? Or, you know, look for babies.
Well, we suck the youth out of children.
Right, right. I shouldn't say
we don't
ate babies.
Consume them.
Exactly, exactly. Now, I wanted to ask you, Kathy, in the movie Sister Act, I know you used sort of Mary Hart as a role model because you wanted someone bright and perky in terms of... Right. And who did you use as a role model for this particular role?
Actually, a little bit of my friend Susie and a little bit of Eddie Haskell. Because my character, Mary, is like so in awe of her older sister, who's Bette Midler, who I'm in real life so in awe of. She's been like an inspiration for me my whole life. So it was really, really easy to tap into that sort of like kiss ass, you're so perfect, you're so smart, you know. And it was a way for me to...
Okay, thanks, Kathy. We're going to have to be bleeping that out a little bit later. Let me take a look at a clip from Hocus Pocus. Now, as you mentioned, young children are part of the Sanderson sisters' diet, or at least they suck the life out of young children. And in this scene, your character demonstrates her knack for finding them.
Smell.
children. Sick 'em. It's a little girl. 7, maybe 8.5. Oh, let's play with her. Come, little children, I'll take thee away. In. Come out, my dear. We will not harm thee. We love children.
I thought they'd never come, sisters.
Greetings, little one.
'Twas I who brought you back.
Imagine. Such a pretty little child. Look at her. And she's so well fed, isn't she? Shishka baby.
Kathy, I know, I read that you said that this isn't Medea, but are you happy with the film?
You know, Katie, I haven't seen the whole thing. I did some looping. I'm right now filming Sister Act 2, so I haven't had a lot of extra time, but I plan on seeing it, and I hear that kids really, really love it. And I had a really good time making it.
Tell me about Sister Act 2 real quickly. We're about out of time. Do you think that's going to be as successful as the first one?
You never know.
Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, basically, Whoopi does what she did with the nuns to a group of inner-city kids. She teaches them to sing and have self-esteem and self-respect, and a lot of new characters and a lot of the old favorites.
And you're as bright and cheerful as ever?
I hope so.
Okay, Kathy Najimy, thanks for talking with us this morning.
Thanks.
The movie is Hocus Pocus, and good luck with Sister Act 2 also.
Thanks a lot.
Tomorrow we'll conclude our look at Hocus Pocus with Bette Midler. We're back in a moment with more on Today, right after this. To that, her comedic talents and wry sense of humor, and she was the perfect choice to star in the new movie, Hocus Pocus. Recently, I talked with Bette about her latest role as a wicked witch named Winnie.
Hello. Goodbye.
She's very, very funny, and I could play her. I'd be happy playing her for the rest of my life. She gets to do everything, you know.
What kind of witch is she?
Well, she's completely demented. She can be quite evil, but most of the time she's very funny. Of course, she doesn't know how funny she is, but she can be quite wicked.
I was going to say she is one nasty witch.
She's
and
very
I was gonna
nasty,
ask
but
you,
she's so funny.
Was that a stretch?
Well, some people say it wasn't. However, I think I'm a very kind person. I just, Kenny Ortega was the director on that. And Kenny Ortega is a dancer. He started out as a dancer. So when he put the three of us together, Sarah Jessica Parcer and Kathy Najimy and myself, when he put the three of us together, he wanted us to be able to act like a trio. And it was the first time that I'd ever been a real part of a trio, you know, an acting trio, and I just thought it was so much fun.
When I watched you all running around doing your thing, I wondered if you ever burst out laughing, because if I were one of you, that's what I would have done. I mean, were you tempted to do that?
Well, we did. We laughed when we felt we had hit it. You know, we got a lot of satisfaction out of really nailing the little bit that we had set out to do. And I laughed all the time. I was always like, girl, you are so funny. To Kathy or to Sarah or to myself.
Sarah Jessica and Sarah Jessica, my good friend Sarah Jessica and Kathy absolutely adore you, idolize you. Were you able to help them and teach them?
Well, I didn't know that they idolized
me. Well, Kathy Najimy said that you were on top of her Christmas tree.
She was it turned out that Kathy Najimy was an old fan of mine, and that she had come looking for me once when I lived on Barrow Street in New York City, and she had left left a letter and a picture for me or something like that, and she reminded me of all this, and of course I had to say, Kathy, I was unaware at the time, but she took it well. And Sarah Jessica was a different kind of a fan, but
she was in Annie, right?
She was in Annie.
And you all had the same music coach or voice teacher.
Turned out we had the same voice teacher, and we were singing that song. I Put a Spell on You, and I walked into the studio, and they had their microphone, and of course I had my microphone, because they were singing the background parts. Well, I started to sing, and I looked over at them, and their little knees were like, they had, they were totally freaked out, and they came to me after. afterwards and said we couldn't believe we were standing there singing with you. And
That's right. They were
I was very touched by
the
it.
backup girls,
The
right?
backup girls. They did a great job.
How was it flying? Did you feel a little like Peter Pan? Was that a blast?
I can't say it was a blast. It hurt like hell.
It did?
Yeah, but there were certain things that were kind of fabulous. Once I was, the director was having a fight with someone, and he was way over at the other side of the stage. So I had the flyman pull me up, and so I could look over and see who was fighting.
You were spying?
I was spying.
On your broom?
On my broom. It was great. You know, the thing about the broom was you had to find out, you had to figure out how to, you know, keep it between your legs and fly and do all this stuff at the same time. And it took us a few weeks to figure, because it hurt so bad. It put a lot of strain on your back muscles.
In fact, you had to go to a chiropractor
Yeah,
after this film.
I wrenched something here, a trapezius or something, and I haven't really fully recovered. Workman's comp. And
I liked when Kathy Najimy flew on the Hoover vacuum
that was
cleaner.
great. I think that's going to be the biggest laugh in the picture. I personally put my money on that laugh. It was hysterical. It was wonderful.
Winnie?
Is this pretty much a kid's movie, you think, Bette?
I think it has tremendous physical comedy for grown-ups, and the grown-ups do love that. But for the kids, it's so, it has lots of laughs, but also has just a little bit of terror too. Not terror like they usually give you, but
Not
fun,
like Jurassic
not
Park
like
terror.
Jurassic Park terror, but fun terror. You know, where you know, they're just, it's just Bette Midler. You know, that
Sort
kind
of
terror.
Hansel and Gretel, like.
Yeah, yeah. And we have very high hopes for it. But you know, hey, I've had plenty of high hopes before. And had them dashed. So what?
We're back in a moment with more on Today.